There's a song that goes, "It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday." There are so many times in our lives that we have to consider when it's time to say goodbye to people, things, or situation in our lives. There are times when people that are in our lives may cause us to sometimes have to make the tough decision to cut them out of our lives. Even though God calls us to show grace to others, He also commands us to use wisdom and discernment and not be fools. In Proverbs 28, verse 26, it reads, "Whoever trusts in his own mind is a fool, but who walks in wisdom will be delivered." So I have this friend who just the other day shared with me that she had gone to lunch with some very longtime friends, and that during the course of the lunch date, the conversation quickly became very toxic. They started talking very poorly about their spouses and about how much money they need to spend on all sorts of things. They just sat and complained about everything. My friend who loves the Lord realized that these friendships were not healthy for her anymore, and she made the decision to have to let go of the closeness in these relationships. In this case, she wasn't cutting them completely out of her life, but she was no longer going to let them have influence on her life. Now, there are times when we do have to let go of some people in our lives for our safety, our well-being, and sometimes to stay alive. So my mom recently came down here to Oklahoma for her annual visit, and while she was here, I asked her to come share her testimony with the high school students in the after-school program that I run at the Crossings Community Center. She talked about how a friend in her life got her exposed to drugs and got her addicted. She talked about how for about 8 years she was chasing that genie in the glass pipe. She shared that during this time that she was shot by a drug dealer or drug addict, who knows, but if it weren't for the Lord, she could be dead right now. She talked about so much of what she was trying to find was love in the streets until the Lord placed in her spirit to ask Him for love and to take away the drinking and the drugs. So after my grandmother passed away that year, she cried out to Jesus to help her to let go of her street life, and He did. So as of today, she's been clean and sober for 26 years and has given her life back to the Lord for the past 25 years. Now, as for me, most of my learning to let go has to do with dating and career opportunities. So in my 40 plus years of life, I still have great friendships with most of the handful of women that I've dated, but there have been a few dating relationships that I needed to say goodbye to for good in order to really move on in life. You see, when you understand that the most important relationship that you can have is the one that you have with Christ, all others are secondary. When you put Him first, when you ask God to be in the middle of your relationships, and I mean being real about wanting Him to bless your relationships, He will. Before meeting my wife, I asked God to take my blinders off in dating, and He did. He revealed a number of things to me. The number one thing was that sometimes you really do have to let go and let God. Sometimes you have to let go of some of the people in your life in order to truly receive His blessings. You also have to learn to have trust and faith in Him when it's time to let go of work situations to receive His blessings. Because sometimes He's ready to open another door for you. That really has been the story of my career. Without knowing it, God has been positioning me in the role that I'm in today. As I thought I was in control all of these years, He has really been directing my steps down the path into ministry. How does one go from having a degree in recreation administration to becoming a full-time camp director, a part-time dance club bouncer, to becoming a social worker, and then a juvenile court case manager, and then the chief of court services here in our county's juvenile bureau? Well, now I'm in ministry, a pastor, the director of the Crossings Community Center. Each time I was afraid to take the next step. Each time I was afraid to let go of what I had. But each time I just needed to put my faith in Him, and He did the rest. My job was just simply to trust and believe. In Colossians 3, verse 17, it says, "And whatever you do in word or in deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through Him." So you see, in order to figure out how to let go of something, you need to first figure out how to let God have control over whatever that something is for you, because God's got it. And I'll end with this. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6. "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make straight your path." He taught me how to let go and showed me the right path. He can do the same for you.